Hi honeybees, my name is Raven, this is Jasper, and this is October, and welcome back to our channel. Subscribe to become part of the hive. Be sure to like and ring the notification bell. Thanks honeybees! Enjoy the video! Okay, so this video is kind of a long time coming. The movie we're going to be talking about today, which if you haven't guessed already, is Dear Evan Hansen. I know it came out last year, so to some people it might seem like old news, but I have a lot to say. I have a lot of opinions, and I feel like it's finally time that they were shared. So this is going to be like, okay, first of all, I feel ridiculous in this wig, so give me 1 second. I'm going to take it off. Sorry about that. There's no way I could do that whole video with that wig on my head. It is too hot in here, so we're just going to have to go with my messy look today. Dear Evan Hansen is a musical, if you don't know, came out last year, 2021. It was a Broadway play that premiered in 2016. Did great on Broadway, and the movie came out last year and got really horrible reviews, whereas the Broadway play won plenty of Tony Awards, nominated for a lot, won a lot, critically acclaimed, and then the movie was the complete opposite. This is going to be a defense video because there are a lot of criticisms about it from other reviewers and just critics in general. And a lot of people don't like this movie for a lot of the same reasons. So I'm going to kind of address those and kind of give my defense. Now, that being said, there are some criticisms that I do agree with. So it's not going to be just a defense. I'm going to talk about the rest of the film surrounding those criticisms and why I thought those were really good. Because while I do agree with certain things that everybody's talking about in terms of why this movie is bad, I thought that the rest of the movie around it was so good that it didn't ruin it for me, the things that were quote-unquote bad. So I'm going to this is more going to be like a defense plus just a general review of all the parts of the movie that I really loved and why I loved them. And it's going to be kind of free-flowing. I have a lot of notes here. I wrote down several pages of notes during my rewatch, so I'm going to be glancing over here just to kind of keep myself on track and remind myself of the points I wanted to make so that I don't just go on a tangent the whole time, because I will, because I have a lot to say. So I'm actually going to start with reading a review that I found on Letterboxd. It is right now the most popular review under Dear Evan Hansen on Letterboxd, and it is by Esther Rosenfield, and she gives it a half star. So I'm going to kind of go through just a little bit of it and just kind of address it along the way, because I think this encapsulates most of the criticisms about this movie, and we'll look at some Rotten Tomatoes reviews as well. She begins, "Probably the most remarkable thing about this film is that you never really get used to the fact that he looks like that," meaning old, I'm sure. "Even in the late moments of this 137-minute film, I was still jolted by occasional cuts to Ben Platt's puffy, doughy visage, newly horrified by his Inland Empire-esque facial contortions and body language that has been seen in cinema only once before, in Murnau's expressionist classic Nosferatu. His exaggerated hunch, hysterically twitchy hands, and latex-smooth prosthetics serve only to make Platt, who was 26 years old when the film was shot, look like a man in his mid-40s. What we're talking about here is definitely the biggest criticism that I've seen about this musical, the film version anyway, is Ben Platt was way too old to play a high school senior. Now, this is the one criticism that I do agree with in a way. If you don't know, he originated the role on Broadway, and that was obviously a big part of why he was put in the movie in the first place. That, and his dad happens to be the producer of the film, but well, it's neither here nor there. He originated the character, and Esther actually goes on in this review to say, to address that as well, and say that he's not the only one. There's been plenty of other people to have played Evan Hansen after Ben's departure in 2017. It was actually taken over by actor Noah Galvin, who is actually Ben Platt's boyfriend. He didn't get the part because of that. They dated after, but interesting fact. And he's actually the same age. They're both 28 now, so they both would have been 26 at the time of filming. And here's the thing about Ben Platt, is he has one of those faces, in my opinion, that's just a little bit older than it actually is. Because in Pitch Perfect, which came out in 2012, Ben Platt was in it, and he played a college freshman. And he was around 19 at the time of filming, so the age fit the role. But even in that movie, he kind of looked a little old. So I think he just has one of those mature faces, which is a real thing. A lot of people have said that about me, so I can relate to that. A lot of people think I'm older than I am. A lot of people think I'm 27, 28, 30, when I'm actually 24. So that's something I can relate to, and it's not his fault. Now, should the casting people have taken that into account? Yeah, and I'm sure they did. I'm sure somewhere in this production, someone thought, hey, Ben Platt looks a little too old to convincingly play a teenager. Everyone else we got in this film to play a teenager, yeah, they're also in their 20s, but they can pass as teens. Caitlin Dever, for example, was, I believe, 24 at the time of filming. I have it written down. Caitlin Dever Zoe was, who played Zoe, was around 23 at the time of filming, but she has a very young face, so you believe it when she says she's in high school. Colton Ryan, who played Connor, was around 24 at the time of filming. He does look like someone in their early 20s, but the way they dressed him up and portrayed him, I believe he's a high schooler, yeah, for sure. Ben Platt, it doesn't really matter what you do to him, he's not gonna look like a high schooler. And yeah, they gave him the curly hair, and he's got the awkward posture and all that to try to make him look younger, but it does end up kind of looking a little over the top awkward. Certainly there are people that actually do look and act like that, with anxiety, the shakiness and the panic attacks. That's definitely very real, but it did no favors to making him look young. All that to say, that's the criticism that I do agree with. They should have recast. Obviously they weren't going to, because again, his father was the producer and he originated the role, and so they just thought they should just put him in the movie, I'm sure. But here's the thing is, the difference between Broadway and film, they're just two different mediums. Because when you're watching something on stage, when you're watching live theater, you know it's not real. You know these characters aren't actually these people. It's happening live right in front of you. So you can kind of play around more with age and race and gender and things like that, because we all know it's a play, and our ability to believe is a little bit greater. We can kind of shut that part out, like, oh, this is that character, this is that character. It doesn't matter that, you know, they're father and son, but they're different races, or this guy's in high school, but he's actually 30. It doesn't matter as long as the acting's good, the singing's good. It doesn't matter as much when it's live theater. I've seen plenty of Shakespeare plays where everyone's a different race, age, that's in the same family. It doesn't matter. You don't question it because it's a play. A movie is supposed to be more real. Obviously, we all know that we're watching a movie, and these are actors, but with a film, you're not supposed to know that. Also, with theater, you're not supposed to think about that. It's just easier to do with theater. In film, it's supposed to match their character, and when they don't, it kind of takes you out of it, because you're thinking, you're supposed to feel like this is real and think that this is a real story. Otherwise, what's the point? You're not going to feel anything for these characters if you just watch a movie and just the whole time you're thinking that these are actors. However, he is amazing. I love his singing voice. It's beautiful. I don't really know what else to say about it. So it's hard to imagine someone else singing those songs. Like, when I think of Evan Hansen, I think of Ben Platt, because he originated on Broadway and because he was in the movie. So let's keep going with this review. Let's read a few more bits of it. What makes Dear Evan Hansen a true marvel, though, is how perfectly Platt's presence works to amplify the horror of a story so sociopathic that only people on Broadway could find it endearing and uplifting. The main character's self-serving deception, as monstrous as it is, may have come across like the actions of an awkward young man who hasn't learned to interact with people, forced into a particular role by a grieving family that he is too guilt-stricken to escape from, caught up in a whirlwind of newfound attention and compassion that's intoxicating for someone whose mental illness has always kept him at a remove from other people. Unfortunately, it's hard to feel any of these things when the person in question looks like an undercover cop. Okay, so there's just again of how he definitely doesn't look like a high schooler, but that first part, I feel like that also really encapsulates another of the main criticisms of this film. People think Evan Hansen is not necessarily an irredeemable character, but what he did was very wrong. What he did that set off the entire plot of the film, just lie after lie after lie, is like not okay, and I guess the audience doesn't want to forgive him for that, at least all the people who are critical of this film. No protagonist is ever perfect. No protagonist is ever supposed to be perfect. If they are, then that's hard to relate to, because none of us are perfect, right? And I feel like I can really relate to this character because of the situation he was in. I don't know if I would have done it any differently. So in the film, which I'm sure you've watched it if you're watching this review defense, just to recap, Evan Hansen, this very awkward high school senior, no friends, no anything, doesn't talk to anybody. One day, this kind of school outcast, Connor, signs his cast and says something along the lines of, now we can pretend we both have friends, because Connor is kind of a kindred spirit in a way. He also feels very out of place in the world, has no friends, is often picked on. He ends up killing himself. But before he does that, when he does sign Evan's cast, he takes a letter from him that Evan wrote to himself. It's a project from his therapist where he writes, "Dear Evan Hansen, today's going to be a great day and here's why." So Evan wrote that to himself. Connor took it, had it in his pocket, and his parents found it on him when they found him dead. Thinking that note was his suicide note that he had written to Evan, not knowing that Evan wrote it for himself and Connor took it. So the scene where the parents talk to Evan about this, they're at school, they call him to the principal's office, and the parents show him the letter, and they just assume, I mean, what else would they think, that this was his note to Evan. These were his last words in a way, and they assume that they're based off of this letter addressing Evan personally, and talking about his sister and all these other things, that they were really good friends. And here's the thing. The criticism, I'm going to say that a lot, the criticism that Evan did the wrong thing here, like, yes, you shouldn't lie. Obviously, you shouldn't lie. Bad thing to do. But this situation, it was so sudden and uncomfortable. I just don't know how any other person would react. And he did try to make it right immediately. When they showed him the letter, he first says, "Connor didn't write that." And the mom says, "Of course he did," because she's already made her mind up about it. But he tried to tell them, and he tries to tell them throughout this interaction, "Connor didn't write that. We're not actually friends." He's trying to say all this, and they're not listening. They don't want to listen. The mom, played by Amy Adams, Connor's mom, says, "This is all that we have. This is the only thing that we have left." She's telling him, "Don't tell me anything else. Tell me you were his friend. Tell me this note is for you. Tell me his life mattered to somebody." Because they had assumed he had no friends. He had nothing going for him. He wasn't a great son. He wasn't a great brother. He wasn't a great person. But now he's dead. And what are you supposed to think about your child? That their life didn't matter? No, you find a note and you think, thank God he had one friend. This is all that they had of their son that was positive. And Evan could see that. So how could he take that away from her? Even after trying to correct it, how could he take that away from her? He tries to leave. He tries to get up and leave. But they make him stay. And she sees his cast and she says, "You were his very best, closest friend." Assuming, again, never having met Evan before in his life, she says, "You were his bestest friend." She made it up. She was lying to herself, not knowing she was lying to herself. And Evan, being in that situation, supposedly supposed to be a 17-year-old who's riddled with anxiety, what could he do? It was a hard place to be, and I understand it. I probably would have done the same thing just to make this poor woman feel better. And then it spirals out of control. But Evan is never framed in the right. He knows he's lying. We know he's lying. And we know it's going to come to a head. He's not framed as the hero, at least because of the lie. I wanted to kind of address before that in the movie, the beginning. There's the opening song called "Waving Through a Window," which is probably my favorite song in the musical. It addresses invisibility. Evan sings the song, of course. Feeling invisible, desperation to be seen, and to matter to somebody. That's all the lyrics are. I'm waving through a window. Is anybody waving back at me? If you fall from a tree and nobody's around, do you even hear the crash? Did I even make a sound? Will I ever make a sound? He feels like nobody hears him, nobody sees him, and that's hard for anybody, but especially a teenager, someone who's supposed to be a teenager. That's why I said that him and Connor are kindred spirits, because he also wanted to be seen. He's bullied for being the weird kid. They call him a school shooter, they call him all these things, and you could tell it upsets him. It obviously upsets him. He doesn't want to be seen like that. He doesn't want to be called crazy, and it eventually just gets too much for him. It's also what Connor's parents wanted for him as well. They wanted their son to matter, not knowing that that's all Evan wants as well. So everybody got something out of the situation, not just Evan. He's not just exploiting this poor boy's death for his own gain. Everybody gained something from it. He gets to feel loved by these parents, and then later Zoe, which we'll get to. He gets to feel like he had a friend. He gets to rewrite his memories. It's therapeutic for him probably, because when he jumped out of that tree and broke his arm, nobody was there for him, but he rewrites that and tells Connor's parents, Connor was the one that picked me up. And he convinces himself of that eventually. Like, yeah, someone was there for me. That's all I've ever wanted. And now I have that, at least in my head. And now Connor's parents have that. Their son was connected to somebody, to something. Someone loved him, and he loved somebody. And like she said before, that's all she had. And as the situation goes on, Connor's mom even kind of feeds lines to Evan, like, I bet you guys had a great time together. I bet you guys had so much fun. I'm sure you guys did a lot of things. I'm sure you guys hung out a lot. He talks about going to an orchard with him, and they say, oh, it was the apple orchard. He loved that place. Of course he took you there. When he didn't say that. So they're buying into it as much as he's feeding into it. They're kind of feeding each other here. Now I'm going to address the Zoe character, played by Caitlin Dever, who, of course, was in the movie Booksmart, which I really like a lot. In that, she played a high school senior, and she looked like one. And then now, years later, she still looks like... She's got a young face, so the whole age thing really only relates to Ben Platt, unfortunately. So Zoe's character, Zoe is Connor's younger sister, who Evan is in love with and has been in love with from afar, long before this whole Connor situation. She needed something out of the situation as well, because she, after his death, calls her brother a monster and doesn't want to pretend to mourn over him because she's not sad. But it's obvious it does affect her, because she almost crashes her car. She does cry. Now, does she cry because her brother died and she loved him? No, maybe it's because of guilt that she didn't feel like she loved him. It could be a whole bunch of things. Point is, she is upset by it. And a lot of why she's upset is because she has no good memories of her brother. So how can she pretend to grieve? And Evan gives her something to grieve over. She says, why did he address me in that letter? What did he say about me when you guys would talk? And she kept prodding him, like, what else did he say? What else did he say? So of course Evan just tells her all the things that he likes about her and he notices about her, framed as it was Connor saying those things. He loves the way you play guitar. He loved when you had teal streaks in your hair. He thought it looked cool. All that stuff, that was just from him. And it helped her. It made her feel like her brother noticed her. Her brother loved her. And I'm sure she really needed that as well. So was it wrong to lie? Yes, of course it's wrong to lie. But he's not the only one who got something out of the situation. And again, he is not framed as being in the right. I think everybody just wanted to feel connected to Connor or connected to somebody in some way. And everybody kind of used Connor and his death to do that. The parents used Evan to feel connected to Connor. Even Zoe used Evan to feel connected to Connor. Everybody did. And then Evan used that family to feel loved. So I guess what I'm saying is Evan wasn't the only one who did something really wrong. You could say that for all the characters. They all didn't handle it the best way. And they all wanted to believe the lie, even if they didn't know it was a lie. They believed what they wanted to believe, did what they wanted for their own benefit. It wasn't about Connor. It was about how everyone felt. It was about the mom feeling like she wasn't a failure as a mom. Same with the stepdad, same with the sister. Her feeling like her brother's life wasn't a waste and that he cared about her. Alana wanting to have a successful charity effort. And that was, I believe, a lot just about her, so that she could say that she was a success and she started something successful. So you could say what you want about what Evan did. He's not the only one that did something really wrong. Let's talk about the social media thing. The song You Will Be Found, which is Evan giving his speech at the Connor memorial thing. You could say the whole social media thing where everyone's reacting to it and reposting it and whatever was like cheesy and maybe a little cringe. but I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't tear up. I thought it was beautiful. I love the singing. I mean, really just the whole movie. I loved every song. I loved how they performed the songs. And also just regarding the social media thing, that's kind of how things work. You know, something viral hits, everybody reposts it, everybody tries to react to it, and everybody's like, listen to this, you're gonna feel better, we all need some positivity. That's real. That didn't seem like fake or cringe to me. Like, yeah, fake because of social media in general and how it works can be kind of cringe, but in a realistic way. I liked how they portrayed it. Very modern. It's one of those things that you take from stage to film and you have to portray it differently in film than you would on stage, and I thought they did a good job. I wanted to address how Evan felt as he was doing these lies, because I don't think a sociopath would feel bad about lying about things so extreme, and he did in the beginning when they're saying, oh, you guys were best friends, whatever, he feels really bad about it. He goes and he throws up when he's on his own because of the stress it's causing him. And yes, he should have come clean, but I think he thought that he couldn't at that point, because how can you? What can you say? At that point, it's already gone a little far. The only place it can go is farther, and then it gets worse and worse. But it's a movie, and it's a kid. And if I was 17 and in this situation and I didn't know any better, and I was incapable of thinking like an adult like I can now, and I would just think what's best for everybody, I would think that was best for everybody. I would, at the time. At 17, I get it. He does eventually out himself, of course. He does eventually come clean when it all boils over. He doesn't just try to keep the lie, when it would have been so much easier for him to continue to lie. When Alana releases the note, and she tries to backtrack immediately. I think she realized it was wrong, but it's too late. It's everywhere, and everyone's blaming this family. Your kid killed himself because you guys were terrible parents, or whatever, based on what was written in the note. Why would he write a suicide note to his friends instead of his family? And everyone's making all this speculation. And then now this family's under fire, and things are no longer good, and so Evan has to come clean, and he does. He could have kept lying. He could have let them take the heat. He could have. But he knew it was wrong, because he is capable of knowing what is right and wrong, and he knew he was wrong the whole time. It got too much, and suddenly he had everything he wanted. But then now the people that he's come to love are hurt, and he knows it's time, and he does tell them. He tells them everything. In the song Words Fail, when he's coming clean, he says, everything you've never had right there in front of you. Maybe everybody wants it, needs it a little bit too. And that's exactly what I've been saying this whole time. Everything you've ever wanted right there in front of your face, how can you not take it? And not only that, but it seems to benefit everybody else as well. It seems like this mom really needed to hear that her son had this friend. Zoe really needed to hear that her brother cared about her. What else are you gonna do? I know I've said that a million times, but he says it right there in the song. Everybody else wants it, needs it also. But he gave it all up in the end because it was the right thing to do. They even told him, like, you don't have to come clean to anybody else but us. Yes, they were upset. They were obviously going to distance themselves from Evan at that point, and Zoe broke up with him, of course. But they were still going to take the heat for it. They were still going to let everybody else believe this lie. And then Evan decided to come clean to everybody because it wasn't fair that this family was coming under fire for something that wasn't actually their fault. He didn't have to. It would have been so much easier. He still would have had friends. He still would have had some popularity. Yes, he wouldn't have had Zoe anymore, but he would have had much more than he had before. And he gave it all up and was right back to no friends, lonely, anxiety, all that stuff. And he didn't have to. So I think, in my opinion, that redeemed his actions, because you're never going to have a perfect protagonist. And sometimes just because someone's a protagonist doesn't mean they're a good person. I don't think he was a bad person, but this was a bad situation. And you see if they're a good person by how they handle it after they mess up, because protagonists, they mess up, sometimes big time, but you can't judge their character on that. You judge their character on how they solve the problem in the end, on how they fix it. And he fixed it. I'm not going to say nobody was hurt by it, but I really truly believe that he thought he was helping this family. He could see that this mother needed this so bad, that this father, that Zoe, that everybody needed this so bad. And he needed it too. And then he fixed it in the end, even though it made everything worse for him. I don't think critics calling him a sociopath or saying that this would never happen is true. And that he did something wrong and irredeemable, because I think he redeemed himself in the end because he came clean. And let's be reminded, I know he doesn't look like it, but this character is 17. He really tried to even go the extra mile and do things that nobody else was willing to do. He really tried to get to know Connor after his death. He did research. He found pictures he was tagged in with him and contacted those people. Hey, can you tell me anything about him? And tried to know him through that. And because he wanted to fix things, he knew he couldn't take away the things that he did. He couldn't heal that pain just by coming clean. He wanted to redeem himself. He felt like he needed to do that, and he did. And he found someone who knew Connor, who had a recording of him singing a song. And earlier his mother had said, like, he supposedly wrote songs, he never let us listen to them. Did he play any for you? And he didn't lie. He said no, he didn't. And he found that. And it was him in rehab on a guitar singing a song, and it was lovely, and he sent it to them, and it helped. It gave them something that they needed from the first place, just something positive. This whole film is just everybody wanting something positive. Connor's family wanting something positive about him, and Evan gave that to them at first under false pretenses, but then in the end he actually did it. He made up for taking that positivity away by giving them something real. And I think that redeemed him. He didn't get the girl back in the end. I think she forgave him a little bit, but it's not like they ran off into the sunset together. The family now had something of Connor, and Evan could sleep at night knowing that he did the right thing in the end. I'm defending this film because the criticisms are so harsh. I feel like not everybody actually paid attention and just focused on the bad parts and not all the really, really good parts. At least that I thought were really good. The acting, the music, the characters. I thought they were very well-rounded. You really knew who these people were. You could really see how somebody could fall into this terrible situation and how the lies could just build and build and build, and how eventually it's just so hard to break out of that. But he did, and then he made it right. So, to be honest, I don't see why people think this film is terrible. If your only problem is that he looks old, okay, but I don't think that ruined the movie. So that's mostly what I want to say. I did want to just look at the, I do have the Rotten Tomatoes criticisms pulled up, the reviews on there. So we'll just see if there's any extra stuff we can address real quick. Okay, this is from Paul Burns from the Sydney Morning Herald. He says, something has been lost in translation from stage to screen because what's there now does not seem to be strong enough to have won Best Musical and Best Score on Broadway. Now, we did talk about this a little bit about different mediums between theater and film. Yes, it's different and something is lost in translation. Of course it is. That is an interesting point, is that Dear Evan Hansen, the Broadway musical, was insanely popular. It was nominated for many Tonys, and it won a lot of them. It won Best Musical and won Best Actor in a Musical for Ben Platt. So I figured they thought, this person who played this character and won awards for it, obviously he should play him again in the movie. Maybe it will also win awards. Not considering the different medium and how that would affect the film. I can see why they cast him for multiple reasons. Again, not just producer dad, but he did win Best Actor for this role. Why fix something that isn't broken? Not considering all the differences between Broadway and film and the issues that would come up. They just probably thought, this person played this part so well, how are we gonna find someone as good as them? So let's just cast them. Filmmaking that is cynically and artificially engineered to make the audience weep. That's another thing that might also, get lost in translation. You have to be extra with your emotion, with your scenes, with your dialogue, more so than you would be in a film where you can show more. A Broadway musical on film is going to be extra dramatic. It's not going to be that realistic to actual emotions because people don't normally sing in real life what they're going through. Musicals themselves are inherently unrealistic for the singing. So to say that it's cynically over the top emotional, trying to get the audience to cry, that's just kind of the drama of Broadway. And yeah, putting it on film, it's probably going to be the same. But I think it was justified given the story. I definitely think it made sense why it would be so emotional given the subject matter. So I don't think it was cynical at all. I think it made sense given that it was about suicide, loneliness, depression. Those are emotional subjects. Those are going to make people cry. It made me cry. My mom saw this movie recently. I called her and talked about it. She said that she cried. She also said that she loved it, so I'm not the only one. So yeah, I kind of just really wanted to state my case. I've seen a lot of negativity over this movie. I really wanted to give my defense and why I disagree. And, obviously this is all my opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. And it just happens to be my opinion that everybody who hated this movie is wrong. And I wanted to make this video to kind of say why and why I loved it. So, hopefully I've convinced you. If I haven't, that's okay. It's fine. I still have the movie to enjoy, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So let me know what you thought. If you've seen the film, if you liked it, if I convinced you at all to like it more, if you didn't, I don't know. Let me know. And I had a great time talking about this. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Thanks for watching, honeybees. Make sure to like and subscribe. Bye!